Hi, I'm Avery Davidson. Thank you for joining us for This Week in Louisiana Agriculture. Now, we're not in Louisiana right now. We're in Salt Lake City for the American Farm Bureau Convention. We'll have more on that later in the show and next week. The 2024 crawfish season could be the worst ever, according to a crawfish specialist with the LSU Ag Center. In Vermillion Parish, farmers are finding nearly all of their traps empty, and these latest bouts of sub-freezing temperatures are only making that worse. On a cool, clear January morning, LSU Ag Center crawfish specialist Mark Shirley and Vermillion Parish crawfish farmer Adler Stelly go from pond to pond looking for crawfish. This is what they find: dragonfly larvae, something crawfish normally eat.
Usually you find a few of those, but
not like that.
You know, if anything, it tells you that, you know, the water quality is good enough for bugs to survive.
Yeah.
But there's just no crawfish.
Shirley has 40 years experience working with crawfish and says he would normally find lots of baby crawfish, like this one, at this time of the year.
So far in the last several months, I've checked quite a few crawfish ponds here in Vermillion and Acadia Parish and some other areas, and I'm just not finding the normal population of crawfish that we should have for this time of year.
What are you seeing?
I'm seeing zero crawfish.
Really?
Yeah. I dipped right here in this pond, and I dipped for 10-15 minutes and I still haven't found a crawfish. Normally I'd find some little crawfish that would be maybe a ½ inch or an inch or inch and a half, especially this time of year. By early or mid-January, we should be seeing some of those young crawfish that were hatched out sometime in October, November, December. We should be seeing some of those right now, and we're not seeing many at all.
And Shirley says there are several reasons why he's not finding crawfish.
Well, it was so hot and so dry that the ground cracked open, and those tubes that they were in, those burrows, dried up. So they just dried up and died, and they only die once. And whatever we do now is not going to bring them back to life. So we just have very few crawfish survive that dry period all through the late summer and fall.
Aside from farming crawfish, Stelly also buys crawfish from other farmers. Usually he would buy and sell 350 to 400 sacks a day. On this day, a farmer delivered a sack and a half.
I had a friend in north of the interstate from, here. He checked 800 traps, come in with 4 pounds. I've had stories of, other guys running, 1,000 traps and catching a sack. That's some of the better stories I've heard in the area. Normally the same 1,000 traps at this time of the year would possibly be 10 to 15 sacks.
It costs a farmer the same amount of time, money, fuel, and labor to get 1 sack of crawfish from 1,000 traps as it does 15 sacks, which is why even with higher prices, farmers are not making any money, and this may be only the start.
So the drought and the disaster that farmers are going through right now is affecting this season, the 2024 season of crawfish, but it's also going to affect next year. A lot of the fields that don't have any crawfish this year will have to be restocked.
Stelly says it may take a disaster declaration to keep crawfish farmers in business, which is why many are turning to Louisiana Farm Bureau.
Farm Bureau has been there, multiple times in the past, and they always there to, try to help and do the best they can. But, I ask all the farmers in the area too to, let the people that they know what's going on, their politicians and their friends and stuff, and we'll see if we can get something done.
Now, it's not just crawfish farmers who are affected. Bait dealers and manufacturers are not selling bait. The people who build and repair traps are not working. Stelly and Shirley say this disaster will have an economic ripple effect for everyone who relies on the crawfish industry. For sugarcane farmers, the 2023 drought was a bit of a mixed bag. Farms on the southern end of the state were actually pleasantly surprised when it came time to cut, even if that day came a little later than usual. Our newest member of the TWILA team, Josh Meeks, found out why this year's season was a tale of two crops.
The final trucks are hauling their last loads of cane down to Louisiana sugar mills. More trucks than some farmers initially anticipated.
It looks like we're going to have an above average crop, which was not something we were expecting when we went into the crop in September. What really played into it, we're very fortunate. We farmed some exceptional ground.
It's a bit of a later cut than usual for the 3,500 acres of cane at St. Louis Farms in Plaquemine. Many stalks across Louisiana were still pretty short in the last months of 23, but an 11th hour quenching brought much needed growth to this season's crop. While he can breathe his sigh of relief now, Patrick Frischertz admits last summer came with a good bit of anxiety.
Yeah, Louisiana, summertime, it's 50% every day, 50% chance of rain. You could have 3 inches of rain or no rain for a couple days, and you can kind of rely on that. This year it was just very dry throughout, so I was constantly checking the radar.
With 2023's temperatures ranging 3 degrees above average and rainfall roughly half of what it should be, the state saw its 8th driest year in recorded history.
Overall, I think the Louisiana industry will be slightly below average, but in spots, you actually have a slightly above average crop.
St. Louis Farm sits right on the border of what Frischertz calls the haves and the have-nots. Just to his north, many were not as fortunate this season.
Let's go to Vermillion Parish, North Point Capee, Avoyelles, Rapides, St. Landry, Evangeline. I mean, that's where the drought was by far the worst. And those guys, you've got farmers on that side of the world, had their worst crop in their farming career. So when I say a tale of two crops, you've got people making their best crop and people making their worst crop in the same year.
Ken Gravois, sugarcane specialist with the LSU Ag Center, says dry weather makes for a good crop, but you've still got to have some rain. With the drought pushing back cutting, sugar mills also had to pivot.
We decided to move grinding back about 2 weeks to give it a chance to get some rain and to grow.
Being a 24/7 operation that's always in motion, pushing back a shutoff date like that isn't easy. But with much of the mill running off computers, Core Texas owner Buck Kessler says when they do have to pull the trigger, they can count on it being a smooth process, both for the mill and for farmers.
And we have about 40 different farmers right now. And we have a field person that she makes rounds every day. And so she talks to everybody at least once a week, if not more.
So, drought or not, the only precipitation that matters here is in their warehouse, where it's raining sugar. For This Week in Louisiana Agriculture, I'm Josh Meeks.
According to Frischertz, these brutal winter freezes also pose a threat to next year's crop. But if the ground can stay wet enough when it gets too cold, that may actually help protect the roots and stalks won't have to be replanted. According to the USDA, more than a quarter of U.S. producers have farmed or worked the ranch for 10 years or less. You can definitely see how the lifestyle can entice folks hoping to connect with nature and be part of the community putting food on our tables. In this inaugural edition of How You Grow Louisiana, sponsored by First South Farm Credit, TWILA's Karl Wiggers takes us to Ethel, Louisiana to meet a young family expanding their farm to match their big dreams.
When the sun comes up, it's time for the Rushing family to get to work, even for 2-year-old Porter.
Heavy, heavy, heavy.
These calves spend only a few months here on their farm, but this is the calf that started this all 12 years ago. This is Lucky.
Yeah, he holds a really special place in our heart.
Somebody gave us a Jersey bottle calf to get started. He was dying. They were going to let him die, and my wife, she says she couldn't let him go, so we brought him home and we doctored on him and Googled and YouTubed all kinds of videos, and we got him better and watched him grow, and it was something that we enjoyed doing.
He was our first baby. He started it all. He gave us like the passion to see what we can do, and I have a big heart for the underdog, and he was the underdog.
Lucky opened the door for Matt and Macy to teach their children responsibility. And they still fight for the underdog, buying calves that are usually less desirable at the local sale barn and helping them thrive.
What we try to do is we'll bring them from 250 pounds to about 550 pounds, and we've got a buyer in Mississippi that will actually buy our stocker calves, and they'll bring them through the next phase of their life before they go to the feed yard.
While Matt does have a job off the farm for now, when someone asks him about his passion, he claims the farm.
A lot of people said that it's bred into you. We're first-generation farmers. We're the first people in our families, me and my wife, to do this. But something about being out here. Some people like to run, some people like to play golf. We like to raise cattle, and this is just our stress relief.
It's fun to wake up and not to see what challenges we're going to face that day, but also when we do take a sick one and we move them up and we watch them, and then the next day we check on them. To see that progress, it just gives us that reassurance that like we're doing something right.
Something else that felt right was expanding their farm with this land in Kentwood, Louisiana.
We were looking for a dairy because of the setups in the barns. You know, they all the pens lead back to the barns, and that's what we need doing this. And we're just going to use it to basically grow our operation. We're looking to grow tenfold, basically. You know, we can buy cattle every week, you know, starting doing that, where now we're kind of space limited. So doing that, you know, it's really going to help us expand our operation.
Considering this started with a bottle-fed dairy calf named Lucky, it's hard to imagine how big their farming dream has grown. Matt and Macy say they are proud to play even a small part in putting food on your table.
If we're in like the grocery store or something, and, you know, and you see people in there, look, it's cool to think that like we have a part of that. We have a hand in that. Like, you know, when I wake up in the morning and no matter how tired I am and I go feed the cows and I check on the sick ones, it is really rewarding.
In Ethel, Louisiana, I'm Karl Wiggers for This Week in Louisiana Agriculture.
How You Grow Louisiana is brought to you by First South Farm Credit. First South is how you grow. While some parts of Louisiana are getting much needed rain, for cattle ranchers and farmers looking at brown fields, patience is a lot to ask for right now. At this year's annual meeting of the Louisiana Association of Conservation Districts, cattle rancher Amelia Kent of Kent Farms and Slaughter shared her challenges and successes. In response to the drought, Kent bought a feed truck to start bringing in bales of hay to keep her cows fed. She also added water lines to replenish dried up ponds. In the end, it was a lot more work, but she says her cattle were finally grazing, albeit a month late.
Our biggest management implementation has been feeding and rolling hay out, but no rain. And we knew this in August when we made this pivot, that we would be putting that much more labor into wintering these cows, but so far it seems to be paying off.
Kent says there is still a long winter road ahead, but she hopes her farm's success can work for others as well. Hands-on learning was on full display recently at the Northeast Louisiana Ag Expo, hosted by the North Louisiana Agribusiness Council. Since the 1980s, the Ag Expo has offered a place to educate people young and old on the ways agriculture touches our daily lives. That's why the Louisiana Farm Bureau Young Farmers and Ranchers and Women's Leadership Committee were there to bring the farm to the consumers. Visitors took turns spinning the wheel to test their ag trivia and learned all about crawfish and cattle. Michelle Simoneau is the chair of the Louisiana Farm Bureau Women's Leadership Committee. She said events like this are a perfect place to highlight ag in the classroom resources and educate the public about where their food comes from.
It is fun because a lot of children come through with their parents, a lot of grandparents bring their grandchildren, and they get to see when crawfish, the stages of crawfish, the stages of eggs, spin the wheel, do a little interactive activities, and it just goes from generation to generation. So we're happy to keep providing that in North Louisiana.
At the luncheon that kicked off the weekend, longtime Farm Bureau volunteer Reynold Minsky was presented with the Lifetime Achievement Award. Along with being involved in community organizations, Minsky was on the Louisiana Farm Bureau Federation Board of Directors for 18 years. Still to come on TWILA, Governor Jeff Landry's inauguration commitments that resonated with farmers. Plus, mental health in agriculture is not an easy subject to talk about. A new national initiative is working to overcome the stigma. Stay with us.
You're watching This Week in Louisiana Agriculture, the only TV show bringing Louisiana farmers and consumers together every week.
I'm a steward of the land.
I am growing a better future.
I am feeding the world.
I'm making the world a better place.
I am resilient. I'm essential, and I'm still farming.
I am essential.
I am still farming.
I am resilient.
I am essential.
I am still farming.
No matter what happens, we are still farming.
I am Farm Bureau.
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 We are Farm Bureau.
As you can probably tell from the way things are behind me, the events at the American Farm Bureau Federation Convention are winding down around us here in Salt Lake City. You might have even heard a scissor lift in the background at some point. But there is still a lot going on that we are going to bring you over the next week. The Salt Palace Convention Center has been bustling with activity, from better brand management on social media to policy discussion and, of course, the massive trade show on the exhibit floor. Louisiana Farm Bureau President Jim Harper proudly marched the Louisiana state flag across the stage at the opening general session, and Secretary of Agriculture Tom Vilsack was here announcing a $207 million investment in energy and domestic fertilizer projects aimed at benefiting American farmers. Again, we'll have full coverage next week. Livestock prices have been surging in the last couple of years, and while that's good for ranchers selling their cattle, it does have some downsides. At the 2024 American Farm Bureau Convention in Salt Lake City, the only thing hotter than the markets have been speculation as to when the national cattle herd might start rebuilding. Barrett Nelson, an economist with the American Farm Bureau Federation, told a convention workshop that the process might not get started until summer, if not later. That's likely going to mean higher prices to buy cattle on the market and beef at the grocery store.
I don't think we'll see a real opportunity to start rebuilding the herd until early 2025. And I say that because we're still marketing a very high number of females. When we see those numbers, they're at around 42%, a little bit over 42%. And when we're elevated above that 39%, that's kind of the threshold that says we're still not withholding females to rebuild this herd. And so the time span to, from a time a calf gets on the ground to when it arrives at market is about 24 months, 18 to 24 months.
Nelson also talked about feed grain, saying lower prices might help encourage the retainment of some cattle. However, it's not good news for grain farmers, and Nelson says the acreage battle between corn and soybeans is shaping up as we speak. One topic front of mind for a lot of farmers at this year's convention is mental health. This year, the American Farm Bureau and the Family Farm Wellness Alliance teamed up with the National Ad Council to shine a spotlight on the sensitive subject.
Farmers have to take care of their physical and their mental health.
AFBF reports suicide rates among farmers are up 5 times higher than the national average. This new ad is paired with a peer-to-peer support system called TogetherAll, where anonymous users can reach out about mental health struggles. Florida strawberry grower Marshall Sewell, who is featured in the ad, says many farmers struggle to overcome a sense of pride.
As farmers and ranchers, we know all too well the pressures of the job and the strength that it takes to thrive in this challenging industry where oftentimes we end up controlling so very little. But what we don't talk about enough is how our mental well-being, it can be a rock for us through the challenging times alongside our families and our tight-knit communities.
For more information about the Farm Family Wellness Alliance, go to our website, twilatv.org. We'll also have a link with this story on social media. This month, a changing of the guard. Louisiana welcomed new leadership for at least the next 4 years with the swearing in of its 57th governor, Jeff Landry.
As the governor of this great state of Louisiana, according to the best of my ability and understanding. So help me God. Congratulations, Governor.
Republican Jeff Landry took his oath of office alongside his wife, Sharon, and his son, JT. He previously served as Attorney General for the last 8 years and in Congress before that. In his inauguration speech, Landry did not specifically mention agriculture, but we imagine many farmers paid close attention to his recognition of small business owners.
We are mindful that America is a nation built by small business owners. As a small business owner myself, I understand, I appreciate, and I fully support any Louisiana citizen with the courage to risk their precious capital, to pour their heart and labor into an idea, working tirelessly to make a dream a reality. You are the people that built this country.
Within his first few hours as governor, Landry called a special session to redraw the state's congressional district map. The legislature approved a map that includes 2 majority-minority districts as ordered by the federal courts. Also sworn in were Lieutenant Governor Billy Nungesser and Attorney General Liz Murrill. For the first time ever, we're going to celebrate Louisiana Ag Week. That's going to run from March 18th through the 22nd. While that's still a little ways away, the deadline for young people to enter contests associated with Ag Week is not. February 16th is when young people should submit their entries for the coloring contest, art contest, and video contest. Cash prizes are on the line for the latter 2. You can learn more at laagweek.com. You'll also find a link on our website at twilatv.org. Another deadline you need to know about: nominations for the Louisiana Ag in the Classroom Teacher of the Year. They're due by January 31st. If you know a teacher who goes above and beyond to work agriculture into their lessons, fill out the form and nominate them. The winner will receive several prizes and a trip to the National Ag in the Classroom Conference. You can learn more at aitcla.org. Again, we'll have a link on our website, twilatv.org. Still to come on TWILA, all the growth without the soil. We'll take you to a Baton Rouge business using hydroponics to fill your salad bowls. Imagine growing crops up and out of the soil, using only water to ensure quality and freshness. The Louisiana Department of Ag and Forestry worked with a Baton Rouge hydroponics company to let us look at their lettuce.
Well, hydroponics is just a production method that is very space efficient. The most important thing is your salad that you enjoy tonight was just harvested yesterday rather than trucked from far off places, so the freshness is flavor in my lettuce.
Welcome to this edition of Crawfish Tales. We are here today with Mr. Paul Bray at Hydro Best Growers. This is a hydroponic lettuce operation right here in Louisiana.
This crop was planted 10 days ago, and then in another 7 days, we're going to be almost to this size.
Now, are you
here.
starting from seed?
We start from
seeds.
From seed. The block is mostly just to hold the young plant until it's mature enough to hold its own space.
Okay.
And so this is what the roots start to look like out of there.
So what is the timetable between when you plant to you harvest?
We grow a seedling in about 4 weeks in the tube.
Wow.
This red lettuce is a little bit slower to grow, and it's actually been in the tube 7 weeks now. But for the green leaf and the romaine, we're be 4 weeks in the tube. Here in the greenhouse, we're up off the floor, and so we're dirt free. In a protected environment, we don't use pesticides. We keep it, the vulgarities of the rain and the wind off the crop, so it just grows quicker and just is much prettier and easy to prepare.
We talk about, the need to increase food production for everyone. And this is a unique way to do a lot of production in a small amount of space.
Yes,
and minimize the inputs.
Much.
You can buy these products at your local grocery stores. They are certified Louisiana farm-to-table products.
Well, the certification is just a wonderful marketing tool that the Louisiana Department has put together for us. When we're local, we ought to have a sticker that we can differentiate ourselves so that you, the consumer, knows that it was grown here locally. And so that it's fresher, more flavorful, lasts longer, doesn't go bad. Louisiana sunshine is a wonderful place to grow crops.
Certified Louisiana's Crawfish Tales with Commissioner Mike Strain was brought to you by the Louisiana Department of Agriculture and Forestry Certified Louisiana program. For information about the Certified Louisiana, Certified Cajun, Certified Creole, Certified Craft Beverage, and the Certified Farm to Table Logo program, visit certifiedlouisiana.org or ldaf.la.gov. Support Louisiana families. Look for Certified Louisiana logos at your favorite grocery, restaurant, or farmer's market. Buy Louisiana. It's the way to grow.
Before we go, we want to give a shout out to our former intern, Cecily Oliver. She closed out her time with us a couple of weeks ago, but in her time with us, she put together some really impressive stories. She's now aiming for an internship with the American Farm Bureau Federation, which would bring her to Washington, D.C. for the summer. Cecily, we wish you the best of luck. Well, that does it for this edition of TWILA. Be sure to join us next week back here in Salt Lake City with a full recap of the 105th American Farm Bureau Federation Convention. Until then, you can watch all of our stories online at twilatv.org. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Turn on those notifications so you know when we put something new out. For all of us here at TWILA, thanks for joining us. We hope to see you again right here next week.